Hey everyone, it's Imani and River from the Haven Earth Trade School at the Haven Village in East Tennessee. And we are excited to be joined with Sovereign, who is our trustee. Some of you may not know the story of how we all came together. So we wanted to touch on that a little bit. Sovereign and I met, a few years ago and online where we've been hosting conversations, and some of the most relevant conversations specific to these times was really what brought us together and brought so many of us together. And what stemmed out of that were these brave new life conversations where we were hosting calls with people from around the world, trying to deconstruct and understand what was going on, but more importantly, how we were going to rebuild and reconstruct this new earth that we've all been dreaming of. And we shared a lot of similar dreams and visions and strategies, and wove it together with Syntropy, which is what Sovereign's all about, and this model that's really based on agroforestry, but relating that to human ecology. And that's how we met River, because he came onto one of those conversations. So that was really relevant for us to come together, because what we did through those kind of the germination of kind of speaking into existence what River and I have really been able to put into action as we've literally returned to the land. But Sovereign has been witness, this midwife holding space for us as we birthed our journey back onto the land, where we've been able to create the Home for the Haven Earth Trade School, which is focused on natural building, but homesteading, and really how do we return to the land. We're really passionate about creating a model within the private sector for how to do that. So, Sovereign, I thought it would be great for you to share that witnessing of our journey and stepping into a trustee role, which is really holding us from the other side of the world, you there in Bali, just kind of witness and holding a sense of not accountability, but just holding that it's really important. You're anchoring the vision, just like we're doing with the Vastu structure on land. So would love for you to share.
So great. Yeah, it's the witnessing and the carrying of the dreaming, really. In syntropic agroforestry and how I relate to it, it's really the richness of the microbiology in the soil and the biodiversity of that really benefits right from the onset of designing spaces where humans come to live together and have a shared vision and a shared purpose, to have a diverse take on that, so that resiliency actually comes about for that. And it's been really beautiful to be coming back into the fold now as a trinity, all stemming from our journey through our brave new life and the brave new lives that we each have stepped into. And then to be able to lean my expertise and my experience into the Haven Village Trust has been a really beautiful and I feel a really pertinent element. It's that love language of syntropy. It's the frequency of yay, so to speak, that has really been woven into when we talk about the contracts that we all had to establish and the agreements that had to be formed, to really do that with a sense of expanded awareness in how that can be inclusive. So many of the contracts often are firm boundaries in an exclusionary basis of what is not permitted and so forth. And we're really looking at the life affirming ways. And I feel that we've done an excellent job in accomplishing that, which then leads into the establishment of the actual physical build out. And when that undercurrent, that weaving and that tapestry, the frequency and consciousness is there and it's held and it's embodied, then it can continuously grow and expand. And yeah, my role and my function is to pay close attention, to be that witness, but also to be that that reflector that has the ability to see through the lens of syntropy where we may benefit as a whole, looking at things through that lens so that we comprehend that if we go this direction, this is where things potentially would lead. But if we just shift it with this nuance into a different way of perceiving it, we can relate to it from a much more effective place. And it's just beautiful to be here. It's been an honor to serve in the capacity that I have. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more and more of what's actually all being manifested, because this is not just a fantasy, this is a manifesting reality that is being co-created.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I remember first coming on them calls with the Brave New Life. When was it? End of 2020.
Almost 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was the end of 2020. It was around this time actually, because it was after my son passed in September, August time, and then I found the Brave New Life calls via, being in the truther community, I guess, and, watching Sasha, watching what he was doing and you guys were doing with Sasha, and then, seeing Imani, and then you guys kind of in the background with Sasha and bringing all these relevant people in. And there was, when you did the Brave New Life call, I think you'd been doing it for a while, but then I came in, there was this space that was created that unlike anything I'd ever experienced, of 100 people on a Zoom call, holding space for people to have this kind of emotional unraveling or whatever, sharing, because there was it wasn't just like, oh yeah, I went shopping today and like, it was real, raw and relevant, as you say, and it helped me, I think, to be able to voice and come out a little bit out of my shell. Not that I was particularly shy as a person, but on that emotional level, to be able to share. And and then obviously Imani and I having a deeper connection fairly early on, and then us meeting, and that instantaneous sense that our life purposes were coming together for a bigger purpose. And obviously you were out in Bali, so we were doing all this traveling around, everybody was on lockdown, and we were, Imani was doing, creating these events, people were coming out. And I remember at that time, somebody, it was in Nevada City, we went up there, and we're good friends with Renette Sinham, the ex-mayor there, and we
Keep going.
and we had an event, and somebody was saying to us, you guys don't know what you're doing. I was like, what? There goes, you think you're doing this thing, but really you're doing that thing. And it kind of struck me that,
well, I kind of knew what we were doing.
Yeah, well, we were having these events and talking about hemp. We were starting to bring hemp into the picture, because that was, my calling and sense was that hemp was a bridge to help us, get back to creating community.
And it also helped to focus people on solutions, because during that time,
Right.
it was really heavy,
I'm
and
traumatized.
it allowed us to talk about what was going on, but also to start dreaming into the future and dreaming in this new world that we've all been talking about. And a lot of people are talking about it. I think what's significant about what we've been doing and what you've witnessed, Sovereign, and you were sharing that through Bali, is like, and people share this with us a lot, is like, we're actually doing it. We're actually putting it into physical manifestation. And that a lot has to do with your background, River, as a builder, an architect, but who's been passionate about natural building. And so it was a natural pathway to really bring that into physical form. And I think that that's
Right.
what we really want to share with people, is that model, and also inspire people to do that. So I think it would be good to catch people up on where we're at. So we all met, we came together, and River and I were doing a lot. We started doing the hemp building workshops, in May, immediately, pretty much there was an
2021.
instant recognition of what we were here to do. That's been really clear. And Sovereign, you've been in Bali and kind of doing different things and weaving it, but we keep weaving back together. And then this whole past year was not this past year, but that year. From that point, we were really looking for land, to return to the land. This is the events that we've been having of, one, how do we do that? Where do we do that? And then, that more important question, because a lot of people have been from a place of fear, even just trying to return to the land. But we have been trying to do it in a particular way. And I think we've been really successful. And that's what we want to share with people in the new year. We're kind of coming out of our hibernation, because the last 6 months that we have been on the land here in East Tennessee, we've been so busy that it's hard to even come up for air at all. And so just even trying to have ongoing communications with Sovereign to keep him in the loop. I was like, Sovereign, get on Instagram and Telegram and just watch the videos, because we don't even have time for a call. But we've been pretty successful documenting everything along the way. And I think it was really important what you said earlier, Sovereign, that we started this a year ago, as when we talked to Charles, who was the previous land steward. So we're at that 1 year mark. And for me, the solstices and the equinoxes are always really important times for reflection. And so I think it's no coincidence that we're here on the solstice, and we want to bring this light for what this day represents as a light of hope for people into the new year, of what we're co-creating together, whether you're here with us on the land or you're using this as a model to do wherever you are in the world. And so I think, just to kind of go over that trajectory, because we want to actually put it into a presentation and invite people to join us on New Year's Day to see the visuals of it. But maybe you can articulate from this moment where we met Charles a year ago. We were in the middle of building the tiny hemp home, which is now literally just being finished to be completely off grid. But it's been a journey, and it hasn't been, just easy breezy, as River said. We've learned some lessons.
Yeah, I mean, just chronologically, where we've been since we met Charles. We met Charles and Dana, the land stewards, because we were focused looking in Texas, and then we kept getting, it was between Texas and Tennessee. It seemed like these places were gravitating the freedom community, but Texas, we felt pulled there. Every time we go back to Texas, we'd be like, "Oh, it feels like home," and we felt welcome.
Was coming online.
And help was coming online, and we felt welcome there. But this Tennessee thing, we kept going to the Self Alliance Festival and different stuff.
Well, actually, we came to Tennessee for the first time a year and a half ago, and we had been here multiple times for other people who were buying land that we were doing consultations. And every time we were here, we felt a strong pull, and really to this particular area specifically.
Yeah. And, we met Charles, the land steward, the beginning of this year in Colorado, when we were visiting one of our hemp processors. And our first meeting was in a hot springs. Imani loves hot springs. And,
kind of hit it off.
We hit it off right away up in the mountain in the snow in a hot spring, and, shared similar values. And we planned to meet, and the dates a month later, and happened to be the full moon. And so we met them on the land here, and Charles took us on the big tour of the land and showed us everything. And we were blown away by the land, and also by Charles's knowledge and what he'd been doing here to try and set things up in a more resilient way into the future. And then we ended up I wanted to come back out here because I hadn't, we came for a weekend. He took us on a tour. I really wanted to feel into the land more, so I ended up coming out and spending a weekend out here and really meditating on land and feeling into it. And the more I spent time out here, the more it felt like the right land.
I think there's one thing that's significant, and we were talking, at Exit and Build and Greater Reset with John and Rebecca Bush about returning to the land in this checklist. And there were so many things here on this land that were meeting our checklist. And oftentimes when you go to a land, you're like, oh, this is amazing, and I could do this and that. This had a lot of infrastructure, which was on our checklist, and as a way to get started, to really have a launching pad to move quickly, which is what we've done. But also, when River did come back to the land, usually you come back again and you're like, oh, it's great, but I wish this wasn't there, or
Yeah,
that
you
road
start to
wasn't
see things
there,
that you hadn't
or
seen.
there was this there. And he was on the land and said, it's even more amazing than I thought last time. And every time we came back to the land, it was like, she kept giving. It was so abundant. Like, it's more. And there's this whole other area that I hadn't seen. And then now they're like, literally even weeks ago, we're like, there's a whole other area that we haven't. And it's so diverse with the different topography, like the forest, the water. I mean, so water was obviously a big thing. We come back literally, so February, March, we're on the land together. April, we're here. May, we're at Exit and Build, and we're already putting in an offer on the land by the end of May, and opening up to our private members who had been with us for the year as we were looking for this land to be more involved. And we came out in June on the solstice and the full moon with some of our members and put in that offer and closed on the property on Independence Day, July 4th. And we're here at the end of July to help Charles transition off the land. And he always had a vision for the trade school. So he's part of our faculty. They're actually building a hemp house in Colorado. So we do have a lot of similarities. And he was from this land, but just wanted more space. He actually wants to be in Alaska. I was like, well, this feels like a lot of space to me, but not enough for Charles. But he has somewhere to come back to. And him and Dana will actually be joining us for our hemp building training in the spring, when we do our first spring semester here on our land, building our structures. So it was that point, I think, Sovereign, that we brought you back in around May, because we were starting to create the infrastructure around the documents. Like, we have already been established as a private membership association for 2 years. River and I did that right away, but we set up our trust because we put the land in an irrevocable land trust. And that's an area where you have some skills around, natural law and the ways that we wanted to set it up, and to create it where there was expansion and not restriction, as you had mentioned. And that's really, really particular, because again, when we return to the land, we have a lot of ideas on how that is. And if we don't have that proper structure to be the container to hold the dream of what we're stepping into, I think there can be a lot of pitfalls. So we started working on all of those documents, as well as our living agreements of how we were all going to come to the land. And you've been instrumental in that. And that was a lot of the behind the scenes as we were finalizing the sale of the property, which we, purchased debt free. So we were working on all of that, and you were working with some of our members on that. And at that point, you really came in more fully as one of our trustees. So maybe you can speak to that, and then River can share a little bit more of like what we've been doing physically on the land, because this behind the scenes invisible stuff is really providing the context for how we are doing things.
Yeah, it's the blueprinting of the orientation, and because it's so easy to have, and I've witnessed so many communities that start out with the best of intentions and a whole range of really wondrous fantasies, and yet the groundedness around the structure and really the foundation upon which the structures get to be built in terms of agreements and contracts, and how all the different elements in relationship, in this case, to the private land trust, how well that was set up, and how detailed that was delineated, allowed for a lot of cross-referencing between various aspects. And as we journeyed into that, it became apparent that we needed an extra set of, and we discovered more. And it's like taking the journey through time in the planning out of systems design in human ecology. There is a looking through time, which is something that people can access when they understand syntropy and syntropic agroforestry. You literally get to feel where certain hiccups or what certain outcomes will be, because you get to learn what the causality is of life on the earth, that everything has an impact and everything has a result by means of its function that it performs. And so in a very detailed manner, I started assessing the different functions of the different elements that were all to perform their own individual purpose, but a coherent and cohesive purpose to serve the greater mission and the vision, and to be in alignment and to be in support of that, because that's how it works in syntropy. All of the species are not in competition. They're all there to enhance the growth and the functions that each has as a gift and a talent to offer to the system as a whole, which then increases the quality and the quantity of consolidated life. And in human ecology, you would call that the frequency of consciousness, how much awareness is being brought about by means of the intentions that are really well thought through. And so the blueprinting in the way that clarity and structure, but also through the forms of agreements, that there is a coherence, a coherency and a cohesion between all the members, and there is a comprehension as to how the different elements have their individuated roles and responsibilities. And it's been a really beautiful journey, because I've had a lot of experience in writing up contracts and to be really asked to bring syntropy into that field of awareness so that it underwrites the orientations and the trajectory upon which this beautiful land gets to be developed and cultivated and then co-inhabited. Has been really it's been really quite stimulating me in very positive ways, because I don't often get asked to bring that level of gift and talent that I have been given to the table. And so I've been all in from the beginning with this. And then to witness from afar the culture of care, that's really an intrinsic aspect of the actual build out and design. And I love it every time that River is there's a new stage in a project, and that it's so easy as an architect or a designer in my imagination to have it all planned out rationally. But each and every time I hear him, that he just sits and meditates with the land. You know, he went back to the land to sit with the land and meditate on what does this land have, that what does it have to translate to me so that I can navigate with it, as opposed to imposing my ideas and what I think is most beneficial. And I see in that something really beautiful that I've recognized in both of you already from very early beginnings, is that ability to care, that ability to listen and receive, but then to also apply that when we're really also in an orientation of getting shit done. And yeah, it's amazing to see what's all being constructed. And with that also, it's so easy to showcase all the great things that, you know, end up on Instagram. But on this day where we want to share the light of what we are wanting to translate, it is really us coming through our own individual shadows that we actually get to sit here and say this. And that's something that very often is not really translated, because it seems that it's nicer to just show how great it all is. But it's been hard, it's been challenging. And I've been in a very privileged position to encourage and remind both River and Imani that they're in master navigator training, doing it on all the different stratas, not just the vision, and not just, okay, now we're going to go build it out, but there's a whole residential membership group fully involved, fully invested with their focus, their energy, and their passion. And so there's so many tiers to this singular project called Haven Village. And it's it's really shown me that the time that we spent together during Brave New Life, cultivating our ability to be really real with each other, to really be able to receive one's reflection from what the other person is hearing. And both River and Imani know that I have a lot of experience in supporting humans in listening to the underlying story. And yeah, it's amazing that in so many instances I can just rely back on the agroforest and find the metaphor or the analogy. And we had that this morning. It was beautiful. Another analogy just out of my backyard. And that allows the cells then to look through that lens of syntropy, and then there becomes almost an effortless flow into it's moving through the hurdle of what's all on the table. And from me looking at it from the other side of the world, I have not actually understood how so much can be done in such a short period of time. And maybe River, you can lay out and speak to some of that.
Yeah, yeah, so relevant. This part of it that people don't get to see, right? That it's not as tangible as a physical thing being built out. But it it is a huge part of all of that happening. And you know, before I just dive into the physical stuff, it was there's, you know, we talk about resiliency in, you know, creating resiliency to for moving into the future, and creating all these different systems that will make us resilient, our food systems, our homes, our energy, all of that. But um resiliency, I think, fundamentally is our own capacity to be able to pivot, to be able to take new information in, and and be able to change path, to change course, to adjust, to you know, maybe we had strong plans and a direction, and then we all of a sudden now we've got to change that. And for a lot of people, that's almost impossible. They go into a state of, you know, atrophy, and just start freaking out that oh, it's all changing. I you know, it's falling apart. Like, um, and I think we need to cultivate that resiliency within our own self, before we can cultivate the resiliency here on the land. Because nature and the nature of life, outside of, let's say, a 9 to 5 kind of, let's say, city living, where everything's kind of programmed in a certain way, with the food going to the store and all of these different things being dependable to some degree, maybe not as much now into the future, but here, when you're doing it and you're looking to provide all of them needs yourself, there is a requirement that you get really resilient. And you know, I think what's really valuable, what you're bringing, is that awareness to help us have a soundboard, to be able to say, yeah. And then you can help, you know, give us some context as well, from afar. But the ability to shift and change and move and adjust plans and all of that is key to success of this. Like, it's fundamental. And, you know, if anybody's thinking about having a homestead, or doing anything like this, you better think hard about it, because it's not going to go as you plan.
Yeah.
That's guaranteed. That's the one thing that's guaranteed. It's not going to go how you think it's going to go.
And a
And you
lot of that ties into the willingness to be open, the willingness to be, what I would say is, to be curious, but the willingness expressed as a agreement with self and an agreement between each other, that there is a willingness to be open, to look at things from a different perspective. Because without that willingness, people are stuck in the judgment. They are not able to access that, like, oh, maybe this is performing a function with purpose. And that's how I enter pretty much every conversation that I have where maybe issues are being brought up with whoever I talk. It's like there's always that, like, how is that actually serving? And that allows then also for that willingness to then pivot, that willingness to shift, as opposed to staying rigid with the plans that were laid. Because there were some plans and ideas that were initiated, and then along the way there have been turning points. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah, I mean,
resilience building.
right.
Yeah.
And I think we realized that all of our past had just trained us for this moment now, and then this is all training us for something else.
The
Yeah.
master
The master
navigation.
navigation. And
Thanks for
yes,
those reminders, Sovereign.
yeah.
We always love when Sovereign reminds us why we're doing this.
So yeah, just on a practical sense, really we were, we did a design. I did a design, had some input from a Vastu consultant on the master plan, spent a lot of time on the land, feeling where things wanted to be, where it made sense. I do meditate on land, but there's also a very pragmatic part of me that is looking at, the functionality of things, whether it's public versus private, whether it's educational, what's the flow of life? What's the flow of people coming in from the outside versus people who are staying here on the land, and kind of putting all that together. I did my thesis in architecture school back in England, way back now, and I used Tom Bender, who was this American architect who studied in Japan and all of this. But
I actually had one of his books.
yeah, and if you go to his website, tombender.org, you can see my interview with him in his interviews. Sent him questions and all that. He passed away last year, actually. I came across something. But he was saying, I was asking him, where'd you get your inspiration from for these? Because he was doing feng shui and Japanese inspired architecture. And he said, I take in all this information as much as I can, of every possible thing that could affect, the design, and even beyond that. And then he meditates, and then that, like, through that process comes the alchemy, and that always stuck with me. And that was something that I always kind of, from a young student of architecture, kind of took that on board, and that's really served me throughout my career. You know Things, one of the last projects was the Ritz-Carlton in Kazakhstan, and it was a nightmare project, and all kinds of stuff going on you can't imagine. And I would, be stressed in the morning. Everyone would be stressed trying to figure things out. I'd go home, meditate at lunchtime, and I'd come back with the answers. And it's that space that creates the opportunity for life to give us the answers, for the relevancy of our own understandings and deeper understandings that maybe on the surface we're not able to access so much, that they come up in that opportunity. So through the design process, really felt like we'd anchored a plan to move forward, and that really is paramount, I think, for doing something like this, because you need something that you can push against and make them changes, and not to be rigid. And so we were focused, we did the master plan, and then we have this zone one. And as anybody knows permaculture, the focus in the beginning is zone one, your immediate infrastructure, your energy, your power, your water systems, your food systems, and obviously some dwellings. And so we really have been focusing on that this year, which is to do with the temporary structures or glamping cabins, which we purchased 10 of these canvas glamping cabins, and they come with metal frames. We got the first one with the metal frame, and the other ones we got without the frame, so we could actually put a proper door on it. And my concept was that we would frame them out, so down the road in the future, some years later, we can take them canvas off, and we can actually hemp them and make them into little hemp cabins. So I'm kind of, I'm thinking of the immediate needs, but also looking into the future, because one, we don't want to be wasteful of materials, but also we don't want to be wasteful of the energy we've already inputted into the system. And so, multiple functions for things. And then we've got yurts, which we're in process of putting up the second yurt right now. We have 7 yurts we're going to be building out before we get to the springtime, which is going to be moving into more permanent structures. We put a lot of infrastructure in place. We've created access to our barn, a really nice set of stairs we built. Charles had had some hoop houses here, but they were just basically metal frames and not in the best condition. So we fixed them up. We combined them into one big hoop house. Got this amazing, resilient cover for the whole thing. We've just, built ends for it, barn doors. We've created a composting toilet. We've built
That was one of our first
one
projects.
of our first projects was the composting toilets. We built outside showers. We've, our commercial kitchen, which was, one of the great assets that Charles left, was running off electricity. It was like this commercial kitchen with this little chintzy electric stove in there. It didn't even really make sense. So we ended up upgrading to propane there, and we got a big propane tank now. And, that's perfect because now all our hot water is on propane and super efficient, and also very much not tied to the grid, which is great. So even when we had the power down the other week, we could still cook over there on the commercial stove.
Really focused on off-grid solutions. So we've got a big outdoor fire pit that we can cook on. We're installing the off-grid hot tub and sauna this week, right now. Very essential. But other aspects, getting that hoop house, I was trying to find the plan, master plan, which I can't find on my computer to show, and some of the other visuals, but we will be doing a full visual presentation for anyone who wants to really see some of these things that River's outlining on New Year's Day. So we'll send out an invitation for that. If I can find the master plan, I'll pull it up. But one of the things that's really relevant about this master plan that River's talking about is what he does as for his clients, is really getting that blueprint, that like we did the internal infrastructure of how we were going to operate, but it's how you physically return to land. It is a map, and it's not to say that everything stays. It's conceptual, but pretty much River nails things. And we shift, and as you're on the land, you learn other things, and we've shifted directions of things, and so we'll be modifying that conceptual plan. But it's pretty accurate, and it's given us a template for how to come to the land, which is really important. I would say for anyone that's returning the land, to have that clarity, to have that direction. Because I think one of the mistakes that people make is just specifically with structures is putting things wherever it seems to make sense in the moment, but not having a plan for how all of these things fit and work together. And Charles did have some things really right, and modified some things, and because you're also working with existing infrastructure. So there was a lot, the 100-foot pole barn, the commercial kitchen, the hoop house, the cabin that we're in right now that's turning into our post office cafe, the workshop. Those are all in this zone 1 that River just talked about. That's really a very small percentage of the land. We're only developing 20% of the 216 acres. So it's a very dense part.
That's our limit.
Yeah, that's the max. So that would be where a lot of activity is going on. So it makes sense that things are in that kind of huddled together, right? Because you're going to have an operating farm. We've already got a lot of animals, which River didn't mention, but we've gotten chickens that came with the land, and cows, and we've gotten ducks, and we've just got 2 pigs, and we have goats that are going to have babies, and we have more chickens, and we have bunnies. And so, but in a way that made sense with the timing of how we're going back to land. We didn't do it in this, like, just go get animals. It's been also a strategy around the food sovereignty piece of how we're doing that. And those are the things that we want to continue to share with everyone in the new year. We will be launching our spring semester starting in mid-April, where people can come and learn natural building techniques, not just hemp, but learning to work with clay through earthen floors and cob, and how to plaster these cob and hemp structures and earth bags, like the home that's blown up in Turkey, Lucky Spring Farm that River did, the off-grid
Super Adobe
Super Adobe
domes.
domes there. So we'll be doing all of these techniques with a focus, obviously, on hemp and healthy hemp homes and living, breathing systems. But people will be able to come and get those hands-on experiences that complement the online classes that we do. We have the online lime plaster course, the Mittlighter gardening course, and the hemp course that are all 50% off till the end of the year with the code THANKFUL. So if you go to havenearthtradeschool.net, you can actually go and sign up for any of those classes and get 50% off through the year. The other thing is we'll be taking reservations and doing all of that. So you can go to havenvillage.net and we will be booking the tiny hemp home that we moved here that's serving as our welcome center and a showcase of what it is like to be in an off-grid hemp home. In addition to the guest glamping tents that River mentioned, the 7 yurts that we're putting up, some of them will be available, as well as star tents. So people will be able to come in and have these immersions in the land and learn skills around natural building and basics homesteading, getting back to the land with a lot of our neighbors here and other people, partnerships that we've developed as we've traveled around that are going to be really teaching some of these essential skills. So that's the invitation for everyone to check that out. If you want a little bit more about our model, you can go to havenvillagetradeschool.net or havenvillage.net and really get a little bit of a deeper dive. So what we're going to be doing on New Year's Day is putting together kind of a collage of all of these visuals, because we just talked about them, but it's really powerful to see them. And we have a lot of videos.
Especially in a kind of chronological order, to see how the land, what the land
So that's
looked
what
like.
we'll be doing this week, is putting all that together.
Yeah, amongst other things.
Yeah. Like putting in the foundation for the makerspace and working on the yurts and putting the birthing rooms for the goats. But we will put together this video.
Yeah. And I think it's
inspired by Sovereign to do so. It was Sovereign's assignment.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's been kind of hard to share some of the documentation of things that's been going on in the last 4 months, really, when we really came to the land. And because we have, as Imani said, we've been in it so much, but also because a lot of it is doesn't seem all that exciting in a way. Someone says, "Oh, we're putting up a glamping tent. Oh, putting up a," but
putting up another glamping tent. Putting up another glamping tent. Putting up another.
and so for us in the overall scheme of things, we need an actual documentation crew here.
We need a videographer.
Yeah, to be documenting this, because we're so deep in it.
But we're getting back in our groove.
But going through all the video that we have, we're actually realizing that we did take quite a lot. So I think, and we got some drone footage and different stuff. So I think we can put together a cool visual effect to show what's possible. And that's really what we're trying to do, is actually, so, hey, look, this is what's possible. It's not like, we're coming in with this massive budget or something like that, and we can just hire a big contracting company to come in and bring all their gear and, kick us all out, and they just get to work on it. Actually, what's possible with making things work along the way, and
River's
building
very resourceful and very creative.
Yeah.
To say, we just got the foam for our yurt floors for insulation recycled from, he's always on Facebook Marketplace. That's one of the only reasons we're on there. But just really resourceful, and developing a lot of local partnerships has been absolutely instrumental. And we'll talk about that a lot more. But that is one of the key things that we knew and coming in, to build those partnerships, to build trust, to identify the resources. And I think that's definitely a strength of ours, and mine in particular, is to really nurture those kinds of connections and to make connections. Like, we're hosting our monthly gatherings to build those local partnerships even stronger, so that we have an identification of who has what in those times, and also how we can support each other and growing the local economy. So all of those are really, really key. We kind of started the timeline in June, when we were talking about putting the infrastructure, and then we did bring another group just to follow up on that thread here in July, and then back again in September when we came to the land on equinox, where we did bring our members, our residential members and potential residential members onto the land for equinox to activate the grid with the Vastu Hempel that we're going to be building out on the spring equinox coming up. And then from then on, it has been nonstop, starting with, repairs to the property, clearing the property, the compost toilet, which was essential to have people on the land, the hoop house, and just we've picked up a lot of momentum. We're managing about 5 projects, 5 different teams right now, but we have the competency of the skilled people that we need, so we can come up from for air a little bit and share with you guys. And we have made a point to document everything because we know that that's a really critical part of the process as well. But I want to loop around to what you said earlier, River, as far as how we do this. And you pointed it out, Sovereign. But for us, it really is about taking time to reflect. We're doing this in what I would say a very calm, like what we say, relaxed, productive manner. And this is really important. There's not, we are busy. There's no doubt about it, but it's not frenetic. And we both operate in this way where we do it differently. And we've learned how we each do that, and we respect that way we do it, where we take time to drop in and we are connected to source, connected to our purpose, and staying in alignment with our mission and our vision. So we do that individually, and then we do that together, and then we bring others into that process. So we, obviously make time to meet with our members and keep all that communication going. If anyone is feeling inspired to learn more about the potential residential membership, we are opening up a few more in the new year, a few more of those spots. In total, there'll be 40 residential plots, and we're taking in that first 20 that will be finalized by June, by summer solstice. So we have some people coming into that process in January. So if that's something that you're interested in, obviously email us at info@havenearth.biz, or just go to havenearthtradeschool.net, and at the top it talks about Tennessee. The best way to do is to fill out that survey there. But yeah, this is really important. Amidst all of the intensity of what we're doing is to come back to center, to stay aligned with purpose, to take time to reflect, which is why we made this time today, because we don't really have this time because we're getting a foundation laid across the way in a few minutes, and River has to go, and I have to go. The water froze for all the animals, so I have to go and put fresh water in for all the animals, and we have, other things going on. But it's important to make this kind of time, and that's, again, you, Sovereign, being in this trustee role holds us to that, because we, in updating you, we get to actually kind of, I don't want to say process, because we don't really like the idea of processing things, but what is it that happens? It's very cathartic. We got like, wow, so glad we shared all that with Sovereign, because when we share that with you, it actually, and with our members, we had a meeting the other day. It keeps us going. It fuels us. It helps us articulate, because when you're in that like action mode and just doing things, you don't always have that time for reflection. So putting in these kind of subtle infrastructure actually allows us, it helps facilitate the process more. And I'm sure that's all syntropic.
It is. Yeah. No, we are social creatures. And when we're in doing mode, our field gets very filled in all the practical navigation that we're involved in. And if we don't get to reflect or sound out, in which what I call pressing out of ourselves, what's all rambling in and around, there is a potential for congestion, but also the potential for the formulation of certain lenses that, it may become really stressful, and that doesn't get expressed. Like, the beautiful thing can be, there's a lot of dynamics going on, and there's a lot of stress and intensity that doesn't get expressed. It then starts slowly but surely starts building up, and then when it reaches that culmination point and it does get expressed, all of a sudden there's a clearing, and there's almost in that expressing a transparency arises where the individual themselves gets to actually transparently see in the reflection of what was expressed, um, that there is a pathway forward with so much more ease and grace. And this is that human ecological feeling based relating, this expressing with each other what we're navigating, what we're running in against, and what we feel or what we think is um, creating obstacles, and the obstacles are all here. And so if they're all there, if we just start describing what we think the obstacles are, then we actually dissolve in that process the obstacles itself. And it's not that they disappear entirely, but solutionary thinking then really becomes part of the process. And
Mm.
solutionary thinking in practical navigation is quite easy for people that are equipped in building construction. They think through solutions. But when we're dealing with humans, we're social creatures, and relating around that creates the transparency, and then also creates the transformation. And it's been beautiful to witness that over the past months, because yeah, it is, you're on new land with new people, with new experiences, new imprints, new exposure, new projects, new things that you all have to figure out. And everything is in like a
Every
big
day.
time machine every day. And it's so relevant to have in my case, to be that support person that comprehends that, and that has the position then also like, hey, it's time for a check-in. Because it's so easy still, because of our cult programming, because of our previous ways of having navigated the traditional world, the world of men, whatever we want to call it, the matrix. There's so many unconscious programs of just keep going, just.
Yeah,
And
for
it's
sure.
beautiful that we've had the various opportunities to reach those culmination points. And then because of our trained ability and our willingness, but also the ability to listen and receive and reflect, and then be willing to receive that, um, there's a continual growth happening. And that's something that I feel is very hard to articulate for people that aren't part or privy to those conversations. But what I'm trying to share here is that having people in the field that comprehend what it is that you're navigating, and they're committed to being there for you, to hold space, to listen, but also to guide a process, because they're invited to offer reflections, is in anybody's endeavor to return to the land going to be very, very
Mm,
relevant.
mm,
Mm.
love that.
Because it can be
Really
a very insular process. and
Right.
and
Yeah.
I've myself gone through that here in Bali, where I'm doing most things on my own, and I get to be my own supporter in that sense, because
Mm.
I'm quite accomplished in navigating my own internal landscape. And yet I also sense that not having the social dynamic that is so beautifully rich in the trinity that we form, I can sense that I want to bring that into my field more and more moving forward. But I went on my hero's journey in the return to the land, my unique way. And it's beautiful to be able to have contrast from my way of seeing things through
Yeah.
the experience that I witness of what you are navigating.
Mm.
Yeah. I love the way our process is parallel, Sovereign. It's been quite, quite amazing. And I think this has been a really enlightening conversation for us, again, to express all of this and to begin to share it outwardly a little bit more like we were. And it is important to do that. So, and we recognize that we're going to be doing monthly Zooms again, live streams. I mean, with you, bring you in to keep sharing this process with everyone, and other interviews with a lot of the faculty that we're bringing through. We feel like we have a lot to offer, and
Mhm.
we're really, really excited about bringing this Brave New Life even further into its evolution in 2024, and really want to open up, invite others to join us on the journey.
Yay.
Okay.
Yay.
Yay.
So you guys
Totally. Yeah.
learn more about that at havenvillage.net. We're getting all that figured out. So if you
So
haven't
great.
checked it out, you can go there and check it out. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll send out, if you're not on our email list, go to havenearthtradeschool.net and get on our email list so you get the notification when we're going live. We'll be sharing this amazing presentation, visual presentation of this past year with all of you on New Year's Day. I think we said 5 p.m. EST because you'll be in Australia, Sovereign. So, happy solstice, everyone.
Yay.
Sending lots of love and light your way.
Yay.
Have a beautiful
Thank
solstice and
you.
happy holidays.